2:47 a.m., the first Ukrainian propeller drone crossed the dark water of the Taganrog Gulf at 90 meters, holding 160 kilometers per hour on a heading that pointed straight at an aircraft plant most Russians had stopped thinking about years ago. Inside the Beriev complex, two airframes sat on the flight line that a country cannot simply order again. The A-60, Russia's only flying testbed for airborne laser weapons, and beside it, the A-100LL, the radar laboratory meant to birth the next generation of Russian early warning aircraft. The perimeter crews were bored. The air defense screens to the south showed the usual sea clutter. They were convinced the war was a thing that happened to other cities. They had no idea that the slow, almost lazy machine on their horizon was not the threat. It was the bait. In 90 minutes, the crown of this plant would be burning, and the system built to prevent exactly that would spend the whole night shooting at the wrong things. This was never going to be one weapon. It was three, stacked in time. The propeller drones went first. 8 of them, launched on a wide, deliberate clock so they would reach the coast ahead of everything heavier. At 160 kilometers per hour, they were slow. Slow enough that an S-400 battery 40 kilometers inland barely cared. That was the point. The S-400's radar reaches past 400 kilometers on paper, and against a high, fast aircraft, it would have seen the launch and killed it cold. But these drones flew at 90 meters, and the radar horizon for a 20-meter antenna against a 90-meter target is about 51 kilometers. The system that could theoretically see half a country was reduced to a few minutes of warning. The drones didn't beat the S-400. They flew underneath the geometry that made it dangerous. Far on the other side of the Gulf, in a control room that would never appear in any report, a Ukrainian operator watched the same 8 tracks crawl across his screen. His job was not to fly them. His job was to wait and to confirm. The propeller drones were autonomous now, running their own routes. The bars were not yet airborne. The Neptune sat on its launcher with its course already loaded. Everything from here was a clock. He had built the timing so the slowest weapons arrived first, and the deadliest arrived last. And once it began, there was nothing left to steer. He could only watch the math run. At 3:09, the regional network finally registered them, a smear of small, slow returns drifting north over the Gulf. And the duty officers did exactly what the attack was designed to make them do. They argued. Slow movers, low, inbound. Decoys or strike? Nobody could answer it in the moment. And the moment was the weapon. Every minute spent classifying 8 cheap drones was a minute not spent looking for what came behind them. A Pantsir S-1 crew covering the plant powered up and tracked the lead drone. 12 ready missiles in the launcher, each one worth far more than the thing it was pointed at. The crew held fire. You do not spend a $500,000 interceptor on a propeller drone that might be a decoy. It was the right call. It was also the trap closing. Because while they waited, the clock kept running on the things they couldn't see yet. Then it got worse. On the perimeter, a security team climbed to a guard tower as the first drone droned low across the fence line. One marksman with an SV-98, a rifle sighted to about 1,000 meters, caught a visual angle and fired. The first round missed. The drone was small and the light was bad. And it kept coming. Indifferent. Holding its line at the same flat altitude. He worked the bolt and fired again, tracking the slow shape across his sight as it crossed his narrow window. Tracer cut the dark. He may have clipped it. It didn't matter. A rifle was never going to reach the things behind it. What mattered was that the muzzle flash announced something the crews in their cabins had been refusing to feel all night. The plant was awake. It was a target. And the target was now firing into its own sky. The abstract had become a fortress under attack, and a fortress under attack makes panicked decisions. 20 kilometers out, the second wave arrived, and it did not behave like anything the night had trained them for. The bars came in fast and low, jet-powered, somewhere around 600 kilometers per hour, leaving a thin, hot signature the operators had no clean profile for. Too fast to be another propeller drone, too small to read as a cruise missile, too cheap-looking on a grainy track to obviously justify burning the Pantseer's dwindling magazine. The crew now faced the exact decision the whole architecture had been built to force. Shoot the fast, unknown now, or hold the missiles for something heavier still inbound. A Tor M2 battery nearer the plant got a cleaner picture. Its detection reaches roughly 32 kilometers. Its missiles bite out to 16. At 600 kilometers per hour, a bars cross that 16-kilometer ring in about 96 seconds. 96 seconds to detect, classify, assign, launch, and correct. The Tor took 2 of them. It worked. The crew felt the thing crews always feel right before the floor drops out. They felt like they were winning. They had spent missiles. They had spent attention. They had spent radar tracks and command bandwidth on 8 decoys and a pair of jet drones. Every round of that was the bill coming due for the weapon that hadn't arrived. The Russian electronic warfare teams did their part, and their part built the cruelest illusion of the night. The jammers reached for control links and GNSS, the lifelines of any drone that depends on a signal. 2 of the surviving propeller drones lost their navigation and went down into the water in the fields. On a screen somewhere, that looked like the tide turning. But jamming a data link does nothing to a weapon that carries its own route inside itself. The heavy thing inbound was not listening for a signal. It had been told where to go before it ever launched, and it was following terrain and inertia toward the Gulf, indifferent to every watt the defenders poured into the sky. EW didn't fail. It succeeded against the targets that could be jammed, which were exactly the targets that didn't matter. And then, for a moment, the sky seemed to go quiet. The slow drones were down or past. The fast ones were gone. The jamming had something to show for itself. In the bunker, the inbound tracks thinned out, and a held breath went out of the room. Someone let his shoulders drop. The hardest part of the night, it seemed, was already behind them. That was the most dangerous moment of all, because the worst thing inbound made no noise on their picture yet. And the quiet was not the end of the attack. It was the half second of stillness before the hammer landed. At 4:11, the long Neptune came in off the water at 30 meters. This was the hammer. A 260-kilogram warhead riding a body 6 meters long, cruising near 850 kilometers per hour, hugging the surface of the Gulf where the radar horizon dropped to almost nothing. Against a 30-meter target, that 20-meter antenna sees about 35 kilometers. At 850 kilometers per hour, the missile ate that distance in roughly 2.5 minutes. The S-400 that opened the night as a 400-kilometer shield was now a 2.5-minute problem, and those minutes had already been emptied of missiles, of focus, of the operator's belief that the worst was behind them. In the bunker, the picture was no longer a clean line of inbound tracks. It was noise, dead drones, spent launchers, a fast contact the Tor had already chased, and now a low return off the water that the system kept trying to lose in the clutter. A voice on the net pushed for a lock. Low contact, bearing holding, closing, classify it. There was no time left to classify anything. The thing was already inside the ring.
The Pantseer tried. It is a terrifying weapon inside its own ring, and this is where the magazine math stopped being abstract. The crew had bled missiles into the earlier waves. its missile envelope opens around 20 kilometers, about 85 seconds against the Neptune. They got a launch off, but a sea-skimming target at 30 meters sits at the very floor of the engagement, where ground clutter and a low closing angle turn a clean intercept into a guess. The first missile missed low. Then the Neptune was inside 4 kilometers, and the Pantsir's last layer was its guns. 17 seconds. That is what 4 kilometers buys you against an 850 kilometers per hour target. 17 seconds for a cannon to slew, find a 6-meter object skimming the water in the dark, and put steel in front of it. On the screen, the range readout fell in ugly jumps. 4 kilometers, then 3, the number dropping faster than the turret could chase it. The barrels swung down and around, hunting a thing flying at 30 meters while built to reach 3,000. The gunner had no time to aim, only to predict. To throw a wall of steel where the math said the missile would be a heartbeat from now. The night filled with the hammer of the autocannon. Tracer poured low across the water in a flat, desperate arc. 2 kilometers. 1. They needed the round to connect in 17 seconds. It didn't. At 4:14, the long Neptune crossed the last fence and put 260 kilograms of high explosive into the Beriev flight line. The A-60, the only laser testbed Russia had, did not survive the night. Neither did the A-100LL decide it. The fireball climbed over Taganrog and lit the Gulf orange. Composite, fuel, and electronics fed a fire the perimeter teams could only stand back and watch. Across the industrial zone, the Atlant Aero workshops, where the drones that fly the other way are built, took their own hits and began to burn. By dawn, the official language had already started its work. Debris, a damaged residential building, an emergency regime in the city. The fires behind that language told a different story. The plant didn't fall because the men defending it were cowards or fools. It fell because the system was solved before the first shot. Every layer did its job, and every layer spent itself on the wave built to make it irrelevant before the real weapon arrived. On one side, a scatter of propeller drones, a pair of jet drones, 1 cruise missile. On the other, an air defense network worth more than the district it guarded, and 2 of the rarest aircraft on Earth, the laser testbed and the radar lab, meant to replace a fleet Ukraine has spent 2 years burning. Russia's program to rebuild its early warning lost both prototypes in one night. Somewhere behind the line, another irreplaceable airframe sits guarded by the same logic that just failed. The package that will find it has already been built. They were never going to win this one. They only chose which minute to lose it.